Well, it's time for a review of the last month. With me, I'm glad to say I've got Alex Bell, and I'd say Manx Radio, but in fact, the day of recording, he's just had his big
unemployed.
Goodbye.
Yeah, it's farewell to that place. I'll be back in there on Monday, of course.
Exactly, because you were doing the BBC.
It's off to the BBC, yeah, Northwest.
We'll come maybe onto that near the end and find out about that.
We'll chat about
but
that, yeah.
How's the month been for you? What stories have stood out?
News-wise, interesting month, I think. Lots to talk about. It's been an environmentally focused one in lots of ways because, well, where do you start? Where do you start?
What you mean, the oil rigs, environmental, that side of things?
Well, yeah, we've had this movement on hydrocarbon drilling, haven't we, off the coast of the island?
Yeah.
The government's basically gas, yeah. And I'd say fracking, but that seems to be a bit of a swear word as far as they're concerned.
Well, they're saying it's not fracking.
It's not quite fracking in the traditional sense. It's not the same as they're doing in Lancashire, you know, where the minor earthquakes happen.
Yeah,
they're drilling for shale gas there, essentially. We're drilling for hydrocarbons. Right. Slightly different formulation, but it's effectively in the same way.
You have to do something to the actual rock structure, do you, to release these?
This is it, and it's got the backs of environmental people up in the same way because it could have the same potential ramifications. And certainly, I think it's possibly strange, you'd be forgiven for thinking it's a bit weird to permit this sort of thing in Manx territory when at the same time government's so keen to harp on about us being a biosphere and a place of great ecological global
I'm sure you put that
importance.
question to the minister, as I did, and he said it sits okay with him.
Well, the minister says it's okay, but the minister also this month has admitted to our local democracy reporter Ewan Gorn that climate change targets as set by Europe are going to be very difficult to achieve. Now, is that realism? Is that being a bit pessimistic maybe? Or to some eyes, is it apathy? Is it saying, well, we're not going to hit these targets, so why bother trying at all? You know, these are the targets, by the way, to reduce our emissions slash them, basically, by...
And are people interested? Do you think people are interested in these stories?
I think there is an interest. I think there's a growing interest. Certainly, I think green issues are dominating the global news agenda. I mean, look at plastic. Yeah. Look at the absolute tide, and sorry, that's a bad choice of word. Look at the tide of change we've seen this year. We're all picking things up off the beaches. And that to some would say, started here, didn't it, Beach Buddies?
And Andrew Newton from the Green Party has laid into the Minister Boot, hasn't he?
Yeah, the Green Party have brought into question Minister Boot's ability to govern this week. It's again, it's a bit of a conundrum when on one side we're saying let's promote the Isle of Man as a special place to live, work and be green, and then we're saying, well, actually, we might not be able to keep up with these international targets. And also, we've heard that Silt in Peel Marina is going to be shifted soon, but we're not being told how. That's presumably because it hasn't been worked out yet.
You'll be covering these stories for your new employee, no doubt.
I should hope so.
What else has taken your fancy?
There's been some movement, some ruckus, shall we say, as far as the idea. Who are the Tavere Group?
Oh,
of course, the Castlemaine has been
added
sold.
to the list. So we've got three of these big things.
It was sold and then unsold and then resold, and now the buyer has been unmasked. It's the Tavere Group, and we don't know much about it.
Well, they're the ones now who've got the villas, right? And also the
they've got the
Zurich.
Villas, and the Zurich building.
So suddenly they're being on a spending spree. It seems like, anyway.
They've been on a buyout spree.
Do they know something that we don't know, do you think?
I don't know. They're certainly following government's appetite for buying.
Yes.
Government have had a nice year of getting the assets in, haven't they?
They have.
Steam packet, etc. Whether or not this reflects a mass economic confidence, which we've been unaware of in the general public.
They haven't done much press yet, although they're promising some press, I think. So
very, very minimal.
I think people like to know what's going on, especially like the Castlemaine. It's just
it's a treasured asset.
Yeah,
there's two ends of the spectrum. The Castlemaine is an existing treasured asset which has fallen into disrepair inside. We've seen the photographs of inside. We've seen the DEFRA reports, and they're awful pigeons roosting and water ingress.
Well, there's still, the last time I looked, anyway, there was a window out in the turret, and that's, I mean, months and months have gone by since I pointed out to the Sefton Group at the time. It may have been fixed, but the last time I saw it, it was sort of, which I thought, gosh, you know, this is a bit odd for letting the wildlife in there too, and the rain and everything else.
So slightly, whether it's some conservation drive, I don't know. Yeah. They've immediately rectified what was a bit of an eyesore around the outside by replacing those metal fencings with wooden fencing.
Oh no, that's a serious bit of kit.
It is,
isn't it? It looks like it's going to be there for some time.
Heavy duty, stop the kids getting in, presumably. At Villiers Square, we don't want to see Castlemaine ending up like that because that's been...
But do you think there's a good news story in here somewhere? I mean, Villiers site could be empty for a long time. It's already looking. I mean, forget the shabby bit of the the square, just the building. It's funny when you don't have window cleaners on there every week. It starts to really deteriorate quite fast as a visual impact thing.
Overlooking the potential conspiracy theory, who are these mystery buyers, I think it's got to be good if someone's taking this, and it is a thorny issue somewhere like the Castlemona, because I wouldn't want to be the person lumped with all that.
Yeah, it's not a mystery. We know who owns it. It's just a question of what communication, I think, to let everyone know what the plans are, I suppose.
I think so. Perhaps they've gone back to the drawing board and they're working on the big reveal. Like, well, we had the same thing with the Mount Murray, which, of course, opened in October again, didn't it? Well, Comus Hotel, yeah. That was all very hush-quiet for a long time. We knew they were doing a hotel. Have you been down there?
Yeah.
What's it like? I've not seen it.
I think visually from the outside, I think they're the first to admit it's not yet finished. It's a work in progress.
There's only a few rooms open, I'm led to believe.
I say the 100 and something rooms are really open, but the health club and that sort of thing is yet to come online. And it needs some greenery, let's put it that way, on the outside. But that will probably come in time. But there's functions booked, it's ready to go. That's putting a lot more bed nights into the Isle of Man, I'm guessing.
It comes back to the old thing, is this a positive indicator of growth over here? Because there's a Premier Inn about to open in town. The Lord Street development, we imagine, isn't
someone
too
knows something that
far
we don't. You know, I mean, don't get it wrong, it just seems like suddenly there's a spur of
a boom,
yeah.
Well, we know in Britain, if Philip Hammond's to be believed, this is the end of austerity, isn't it? So maybe that's being felt over here.
What do you think about the budget, the UK budget, and any implications? There was the odd mention of offshores in a vague way, and obviously the gambling taxes and that sort of thing are going to.
Well, we're back in the spotlight now, aren't we? We had a very close run-in with Westminster earlier in the year. Margaret Hodge and the gang managed not quite to get their motion through. About the beneficial ownership registry, that is. But
they popped over, had a nice little trip and saw us. And
the business which has just emerged with regards to the EU referendum and how that was potentially funded.
Let's finish with that one, because I mean this is interesting. Laurie Hooper's asking the questions. Is that you're talking about the EU reform bill, whatever it's called?
Talking about Brexit. Oh,
Brexit,
of course, it's been in the keys as well. Howard Quayle's trying to pass his divorce bill. We'll call it a divorce bill. He's tried to make it positive, calling it the EU trade bill.
But it had clause 16 and amongst others that were worrying the backbenchers, which are
it worried a lot of us, I think.
Mainly Can you explain to the public what it was basically saying?
Well, essentially, this would have given, in essence, it could have been essentially free rein for the Council of Ministers, couldn't it? This gives the Council of Ministers power to veto and make any amendment which they deem necessary without running it back through Tynwald first. Now, Howard Quayle went back on that word in the keys. He said that everything important would come back to Tynwald for approval, but what's important?
I think as Laurie said, once you pass something like that, it's passed. He wanted a sunset clause on it or something, just so
there's got to be oversight. This is why we have a parliament.
Checks and balances.
This is why we have a parliament. And of course there were murmurings because Mr. Quayle tried to pass its first and second reading, which is traditionally done over the course of 2 sittings, in just one. So was he trying to rush things through and get the power consolidated?
You're a great journalist. I can see that conspiracy theory thing lighting up there. But it's true. This is what we're here for, isn't it? To report and to question these sort of things.
Well, we're not sure. The exact reasoning, I know Brexit is looming, isn't it? March 2019. I forget the exact date. That's when we'll crash out of the EU. It still looks like there'll be no deal in
something
place.
that we had no say in the first place.
We've got to get it legislatively sorted over here, and in the words of government, we've got to be able to react to potential challenges, haven't we? But of course, that triggered a spat between the Chief and Kate Beecroft, which was a little bit ugly.
Yeah.
It wasn't nice to watch them shouting over each other in Parliament like that. Mrs. Beecroft's asked Howard to formally apologise.
He sent a letter out, didn't he?
He sent a letter to members. It all came, I don't want to get into tit for tat here. It all amounted to whether or not Kate Beecroft had been at a key members briefing, which was optional, but she was there, and he said she wasn't there. And a bit unbecoming, I think.
Let's finish with you. Off to the BBC, a place I've known from my past. You're looking forward to this new venture. In fact, not the only one that's leaving Manx Radio to go. I mean, there's quite a movement, isn't there?
Catherine Nicholl is joining me.
But you're in the same building, just in a different room.
We are. So it's got to be the shortest geographical move in job history.
How do you see it? Do you I mean, knowing the position, it's hard to ask this question, but get to the Isle of Man, get enough coverage and all that sort of thing, and
I would like to see it get more coverage as far as the Northwest is concerned. I think lots of things happen here which are overlooked in favour of some of the lighter things which go on here. Well,
that's always my... And I saw them the other week, I said, we're not all about basking sharks. There is stories outside that. But that's the trouble, isn't it? It's seen as a...
It's getting the message across, isn't it? It's getting us taken seriously.
Have a great time. When you're going to be on camera, you've got to have some training
Lots
first.
of training first. I'm just a radio man so far. Still got the face for it, you see.
Me
so
too.
we'll see him in makeup on Tuesday.
Well, watch out. Northwest Tonight coming your way very soon. Thanks for joining us as well.
Thanks, Paul.